Okay, I think the PC I'm on is giving me the issue. But basically, we went through the intro of Linux and we saw some basic commands. And I think we had a good time, right? How many of you think we had a good time with Linux? So today we're going to move a little deeper, right? Just a step deeper away from all that we did. So currently, we can get inside the Linux server, create a file, create a folder, write to the file, move the file around, copy the file, and even inspect the content of a file. So today we are going to combine some of those concepts and then move a step further. And I promise we'll be looking at scripting today, right? How we can bundle these commands, okay, into a single file. Then once we run the file, we are sure all the commands will run one after the other. Okay, great. So basically on my screen are some of the commands that we looked at. We said ls is like the eyes when you're in Linux, right? It enables you to see all the items in your current location. CD is to change your location, right? Change the directory. Everywhere in Linux is like a folder. So when you want to change your location, you're actually changing your directory. PWD just prints out your current location according to the file structure, right? And the mkdir is used to create a folder. Then we saw the cat used to inspect the content of a file. There are some we didn't really look at, but I left them in the notes. You can actually explore them in your free time. So when you open a file, you can just type less. The less command will view the file contents, right? The head will also output the first lines of the file. The tail output the last part of the file. We also saw uname to view system information. Who am I? The current user of the computer. DF will help you to report the disk, like the disk speed, the disk size, and stuff like that. Okay, so the rest, we'll be using some of them today, and the rest later in the course. When you join the cloud engineering program or the web development, you will definitely be using this. It becomes like a second nature. So over here, we are just doing an intro to just get you familiar with the Linux shell. Okay, so there are basically two terms I want to quickly talk about before we continue. So you'll hear terms like the kernel and the shell, and we just want to differentiate the two, right? Before we move on to the shell scripting. Because if you're going to do shell scripting, let's just find out what the shell is in the first place. So the kernel, we are saying that it is the core of the operating system. And that's where memory management takes place, right? And also the devices which are connected to the computer, that is the hardware, okay? The computer is able to interact with the hardware through the kernel or with the help of the kernel. And also we're able to enforce permissions using the kernel, right? So the kernel is down there in the middle, is in the heart of the OS. Then we also have the shell. So the shell is like the piece of software that enables we, the users, to communicate with the kernel, to send instructions to the kernel, okay, through commands. So the commands that we've been learning or we've been writing, we're actually writing them in the shell, and the shell executes those commands for us. So I just wanted to make that one clear. Now, when we combine these layers, the shell and the kernel, then we can say we have the operating system, the Linux operating system. So comprises of these two layers, the shell and then the kernel. And there may be other resources connected to the kernel, right? Okay, awesome. So as I said, the shell is just a piece of software which enables us to interact with the kernel, right? The operating system in the whole. And we have a couple of shells that you may come across in your line of work with servers. So we have the Bourne shell, that's the SH, okay? And some of the use cases are what I've listed there. So when you want to write a very small script, you can run it with a Bourne shell. So it's just a basic underlying shell that you can use for small, lightweight scripts. Then we also have the born again shell, right? And this is like the one that we'll be using today, the born again shell, or what we call the bash. So it is used in automating tasks and a whole lot. Then we also have the ZH shell, the Z shell, right? Also used for customizations. If you want to customize your shell to look a particular way, you can go for the Z shell. And the rest also follow. Okay, basically. Now, let's move on. Are you with me? If you are with me, just let me see your yes. Just type yes in the chat. Are you following? I want to know whether you are following. So at least when you mention kernel, you have an idea what a kernel is. When you mention a shell, you know what a shell is also, right? And at least you also have some basic commands off head now. ls, cd, df, mv for move, cp for copy, etc. So at this point in time, as I said, I don't expect too much from you. So one thing we could actually try to do is to like spend the whole time just doing Linux and just that.
Very good.
But I find that to be it can be quite challenging as a new person or a new learner, right? If you are just learning Linux and it's so raw, you may even feel bored. So our approach is not to make you like teach Linux for 1 month, only Linux, that's all we are doing. No. We'll just give you the intro to make you comfortable with Linux and with the shell, right? You can write some commands, you can write scripts in Linux. Then when we delve into the program, this is something we are going to be using all along the program. So all the other advanced commands, advanced scripts, when you have the basis right, they will actually flow naturally, right? So we wouldn't spend too much time going too deep. So when you see that I'm taking things on the surface, it's because I just want you to be very comfortable at this point in time. And everybody should be at on par with me, right? Okay. So why are we talking about shell scripting? Because we realize that the shell enables us to communicate with the kernel, right? Then it means that we have so much power if we really understand how to write instructions in the shell and also bundle these instructions into a file. Then we can do amazing things with our scripts. So you can write a script and line after line, we can instruct the kernel to do so many things for us. And whenever we talk about automation, when you are even asleep, your script can wake up and carry out certain tasks and then go off again. And that's why we'll be looking at something called the cron job, setting up cron jobs. So we can put your script to sleep, and then we can also wake it up to perform or to run all the commands there. A typical example is, let's say you want to perform backup of your disk. Okay. So let's just take a simple case. You have two folders, folder A and folder B. People are always dropping things inside folder A. And you want folder A to be cleaned up and all the files in folder A moved to folder B every 6 p.m. every day. So the whole day people are working in folder A. But 6 p.m. in the evening, you want to write a script which comes up at 6 p.m., runs, moves all the files in folder A into folder B, and then it goes to sleep again. So that's a simple example of what? Automating a particular task. And you can do this with a simple shell script, right? So database administrators use this to perform backups at specific times or periods in the day or week or in a month or even year. And also you can also use it to automate deployment, right? Moving your website online, you can write a script to do that. And basically you set up what we call a cron job in simple form of the most basic. Okay, let's continue. So how does a typical script look like before we delve into writing one ourselves? How does the script look like? So basically, it's just a normal file, like a text file that you open. And the first thing you do is that you must write this line. So this line is like a trademark line, right? It must always be there in the script. Let me point out that line with a marker so that you see. So this very line. this hash and this exclamation symbol, right? Together with the bin is the binaries and the bash. So over here, we are specifying the name of the shell we want to use. So this whole line, this entire line, this first line, we call that line the shebang, right? We call the shebang. So this, you should memorize it off head, right? Hash exclamation bin bash. So over here, I'm telling the kernel I'm going to use the born again what shell. Okay, so this is just one thing that must be done in every script you write. Specify the name of the shell you want to. If you want to use the sh cell, then over here you won't be writing bash. You write sh. Good. So simple. Now, after you're done, step 2 is that we must enable this script. We must give it the power to run. So on a Linux server or computer, usually before scripts are able to run the commands that they contain, they must be allowed to do so, else the computer will not allow them to run. So this line of code here is performing that action for us. So it is adding a permission. So the plus just means it's adding an execute permission. So this is the command, the chmod, okay, is a command which enables us to add permissions to stuff. So as soon as you see me calling this chmod, it means I want to add permissions to someone, right, or a script. So I call the chmod and then the plus x. Plus x means execute. So look at, I've listed them here for you. So execute is x. If you want to give it write permissions is w. Read permissions is r. So the names are kind of intuitive, right, with the letters. X for execute, W for write, and then the R for read. So if you don't have a read permission to a file, you may not be able to open the file to look at its content. That simply means you cannot read the file. If you don't have write permissions, it means you see the way we were using echo to write things into a script. If we didn't have the write permissions, when we try to spit that text into the script, it will not write. It will refuse, it will reject our write. And also, if you don't have the execute permission, you can't execute programs on your server. So more often than not, each time we create a script, the immediate thing we do, or next thing we do, is to just allow it to be able to what? Execute by adding the chmod execute command. Okay. Are we good? Let me know if you are good. If you are good, just type good in the chat. If it's getting confusing or scary, let me know. Okay. I know for some of you, this is the first time you're even hearing the word scripting or stuff like that, but I want to take it slowly so that nobody gets lost, okay? And as I said, we're going to use very simple examples to explain this, so you don't worry. Very, very simple examples. Okay, then the last thing we do is this one, this very line. The last thing we do is to run the script. So for a Windows machine, if you want to run or execute a program, what do? We double click, right? But when you are inside the server, one of the amazing things you discover, and you may be disappointed. Am I audible? Let me know if I'm audible. I think I had a glitch there. If I'm audible, just type yes in the chat for me. I want to be sure you are hearing me. Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Now, if you are working on a server, as I was trying to say, one of the things that may be a little disappointing, okay, to you is that you cannot use the mouse. You cannot use the mouse. So there's nothing like, I want to execute a program, so I'm going to double click on the program. There's no mouse for you to double click on anything. So on a server or in the terminal, the mouse is not used. So then how do we run the script that we have created? This is how we do it. It is so simple and so easy and straightforward. You just bring a full stop. You can see it over here. So full stop usually means something like here, okay? Then this is a backslash, right? Backslash. Then the name of the script, that's all. Full stop backslash name of the script. Then the script will automatically run for you. So with these 3 steps, put the shebang in the file, it becomes a script. Write whatever code you want to write. At the end of the day, add execute permissions to the script, and then simply call the name of the script with a full stop and a backslash. Cool. I hope it's cool. Awesome. So we are going to write some scripts, right? We're going to write a script. So let's try this simple one, a hello world script. What I have to do is that, as usual, let me just clear my screen. And then we start. Okay. So I'm going to open the Git bash terminal again, right? Let's all do that. Okay. Let me open my terminal quickly. So you can also do that with me, your Git bash, if you want to just run this with me. Okay. Okay, great. I was having a little glitch over there. I think my desktops are too many here. Okay, good. I'm done now. Let me share. Then the next thing I'll do after this is that I'll just show you what we do, what we mean by an SSH, okay? So let me share that screen. Let me confirm you can see my screen. Okay. Good. How many of you have ever used Amazon AWS before? A server on AWS? If you've ever used AWS, just type AWS in the chat. I want to be sure about something. If ever you've used AWS in your lifetime. Okay, not getting any response. Okay, great. So let's seed into our desktop, right? I think my screen is too small. You can't see. Let me make it bigger. Take half of the space and then increase the font size. I believe all of you can see this. So let's seed into our desktop, right? Move to desktop. Then what do we do after that? We created a folder called Linux folder. So let's go into that folder. So seed into Linux folder. Linux folder. Linux underscore folder. Yeah. What do we have inside that folder? We have a couple of things there. Okay, we have demo cohort 2 first scripts.
Mom.
Let's create a folder inside here, okay? So it'll be called that folder mkdir. Let's call it one crash course. And let's go inside the crash course folder. So those who are joining today for the first time, you may have to watch the recording before you may understand what we're doing now. That's if you've not already watched the recording, or else you'll be lost. So if you are joining for the first time and you are seeing stars, kindly watch recording first session before you come here. Or you can just follow, I'll try to explain things. Okay, so right now I'm inside. Let's look at the path carefully. I'm on the desktop, I'm in the Linux folder, I'm in the crash course folder, right? And we want to create a script, a very simple script. Okay, so touch, then let's call it first.sh, okay? Enter. Right now I've created a script called touch first.sh. Good. Now we want to write something to the script, right? So let's use echo. There are many ways in which we can do this. First of all, I'll use echo first. Then I also use what we call the nano. So with echo, I'm going to write the first line, which we said is the shebang, right? Bin and bash. Sorry. Let me write it again. So echo, then the shebang, bin bash. Okay. Then we move this into our first.sh. So we are splitting this text into the first.sh. There's a typo there. Okay, thanks. And I hit enter. Okay. Now let's inspect. I think the write was not possible. Hold on. So I do an ls. Let's open the file with nano. Okay. So with the first.sh, I think the write did not occur. So now let me open the write again.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, please. And I oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was on mute and no one told me. So bin bash. Okay. So basically, currently I'm not in a real Linux machine, right? I'm not on a real Linux machine. So the hash sign is being escaped. So let's just use the nano. Okay, so say a text editor. So the way you have Notepad or you have WordPad on your normal Windows computer, okay, we'll try to use the text editor, okay, of Linux called Nano. So how do you use that text editor? You just type the name of the text editor. It's called Nano. Then you pass the name of the shell script, right? We called our script first.sh. So I want to open first.sh with nano. That's all I want to do now. The echo command was being rejected. So that's why I'm switching to the nano. So I do nano first.sh. I hit enter. Then the screen you are seeing here, this is our first.sh, our empty file, right? So I can now start writing directly inside it. Okay. So the shebang, the bin, and then the bash. Good. Now, we want to just do something very simple, a very simple command. We are going to a folder. Okay. We are going to create a folder. So let's do that together. Who remembers the command for creating a folder? How do we create a folder? So I'm going to say creating a folder, right? So inside my script, the first command I will run will be this echo command. And what does echo do? Echo just spits things onto the screen for us, right? Good. So create a folder. And how am I going to create a folder? I'm using mkdir, right? And I'll call the folder maybe session 2. Great. So we echoed creating a folder. Then we wrote the command for creating a folder called session 2. Now we want to create a file also. Let's say 2 files. Movable, one called movable and one called unmovable. Okay, good. So this is our next script, right? Our next command inside the script. Then the last thing we will do is that we've created a folder. Okay, so let me also echo here. Echo creating 2 files. Awesome. Then we create the 2 files. Then the files, one of them is called movable, the other one is called unmovable, right? And the last simple thing we want to do is we want to just move the movable into the session 2 folder that we've created, right? So what would we do? We'll do mv movable, right? Now these files, we didn't give them extensions. So let me call this one .txt. Let me make both of them text files. .txt. So I'm moving the movable .txt. I'm moving it into the session 2 directory or folder, right? That is all. And when I'm done, I just want to see this print on the screen. All done. Or all tasks completed. Okay. You see, I'm trying to use the mouse to click, but it's not even working because, as I mentioned, I'm in the terminal, right? The mouse doesn't work here. Okay. So let me see this one to echo moving movable.txt into session 2. Great. Okay, awesome. Sorry, guys, my network, there was a glitch there. Great, we continue. Are we all good? If we are all good, just type good in the chat. So what I basically just did was to open a text editor on Linux called Nano. There are actually 2 of them you can use, one called the Vim and one called Nano. Nano is like the easier one, okay? The Vim, we'll be using the Vim 2 a lot when we start with the cloud engineering program. But for now, I want to keep things very simple. That's why I'm using the Nano. Nano is so easy to use. So I did Nano and the name of the file. When the file opened up, then I started writing my commands. But before I did anything, the first thing I did was to put my shebang here. That's all I did. And the commands we learned from our previous meetings, I've just bundled some of them up, a few of them here. So now this now becomes my scripts. Okay, let me go into the chat to see whether there's any confusion. Okay, everyone is saying all good, all good. Nice, 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 sweet. Okay, now how do you close this text editor? You can see a list of commands down here. Let me increase the size. So you have this symbol here that points, the arrow pointing upwards. We interpret that symbol as the CTRL on your keyboard. So the up arrow here, it just means control, right? The control key. So the first one will be Control J is for help. Control O is for write. Control R is for read. And since we are done, what we are basically looking at is Control X, right? Okay, so there's something that's happened to my script. Okay, good. So what I'm looking for is Control X. I want to exit. I'm done. So I'll hit on Control X on my keyboard. Then you observe something, an instruction follows below the screen. Let's look at the instruction. Save modified buffer. Now, all that I've done here is the modified buffer, right? And if I want to save it, there's a Y for yes, an N for no. So what do I do if I want to save this? It's quite simple, right? I just hit on the Y on my keyboard. That's all. That's all. Still, another set of instructions has appeared below the screen again. So after our Control X, I had to hit on the Y. Then finally, I must do something else. Who can guess what I have to do? Then I'm done. Who can guess? By looking at what is down here. It is not obvious, I must say. It's not actually obvious, but I want to see whether anyone can guess. Okay, no one is guessing, so let me guess for you. All you have to do is to just, let me see, there are some things in the chat. Someone saying backup format, kill. Okay, Elkem, the kill comes from Vim. So I think you are trying to bring the Vim command. So over here, we are using nano, it's not Vim. Okay, someone is saying append. Okay, let me tell you, let me guess for you. The only thing you have to do is to just hit enter. That's all. The enter key, that's all. And you are done. So I hit enter key. Let me hit there. I hit an enter key and I'm done. I'm done. Awesome. So we've written our first Linux script. At least you can give yourself a pat on the back for being able to stay through that session. Okay, now let me clear the screen. It's looking messy. I do ls, right? The only thing I have inside the crash course current folder is the first.sh. Now I can view this script. I can look at this content without opening it. Who can just drop the command for doing that in the chat for me? I want to open the first.sh without. Elikem, you are too fast. Why? Okay, so I just use cut, right? First.sh and I hit enter. And voila, the content is spat onto the console, right? So when I did cut first.sh, what follows is the content of that file. Nice, beautiful, awesome. Let's clear the screen. So ls first.sh is still there all alone. But I know that inside this script, first.sh, okay, when I run this script, what will happen? A folder will be created. I'll see echo for creating folder. And this command here will create a folder. And I'll see echo creating files. The command here will create the two files. Then echo moving text, moving movable.txt into session 2. It will also move it into session 2 folder for me. Then the final thing I'll see is all tasks completed. Awesome. Are you ready for us to run the script? Are you ready to run the script? Okay, but we mentioned something that before we run the script, we must do something. Who can tell me? Before we run the script, there's something we have to do. There are just 3 steps I gave you. Yeah, that is calling the name of the script. But before you even call the name of the script with the full stop and backslash, there's something you have to do to the script. If you don't do that particular thing, it's a hint I'm giving you. Most scripts will never run. I don't know whether it will run if I try it on this Windows. I'm on a Windows machine, so maybe it may run. Awesome. I must make it executable. I must allow the script to be able to execute the commands inside it. That is how Linux can restrict permissions on scripts. Because the thing is that a hacker can break into your computer, okay, and start running scripts to mess up your system for you. So when you have a Linux server or when you're on a Linux machine or server, sometimes we even restrict who can even execute certain files and who cannot execute certain files, right? So some of these things are controls that you can manipulate and make use of within a Linux server. So we are assuming that currently this computer is for me. I'm the super user of this computer, or what we call the administrative user. So maybe it may allow me to write a script, but let me try calling the script and see whether it will run. So first.sh. Because I'm on a Windows machine, I'm a little skeptical. Maybe it may run, maybe it may not run. Let's try it and see. Okay, it ran because I'm on a Windows machine, right? But on a Linux machine, it may not run at all. So you call the change mode command, then you add the plus and the X, then the name of the file, and then you make it executable. That's all. You just run this command, and then the script becomes what? Executable. Chmod plus X, then the name of the file. Okay. But as I mentioned, because I'm on a Windows machine, you see the script run when I just called it, because it's assuming I have like super user or administrative permissions. Now, what happened here? Creating a folder. So the echo commands are what are showing us the things I'm seeing on the screen right now, right? Like creating a folder, creating two files, moving movable.txt into session 2, all tasks completed. So you can see the use of the echo command, right? That whenever I'm running a script, I want to be able to know whether the script is doing well or not doing well. So it's like a way of debugging it as the script is running. Debugging means that I'm trying to like find out whether there are errors in my code, right? But since all the echo commands are moving smoothly, it means that there are no errors. Everything has been run successfully. Now, let's just do a quick ls and see what has happened. Now, when I did ls, see, session 2 folder has been created. It wasn't there previously. Then the unmovable.txt has been created. Wow. Now, let me look at the content of session 2 directory, this folder here, right? Let's look at the content. I'll use an ls session 2, this one. So ls, that's our eyes, right? And I'm moving our eyes into the session 2 directory. So when I hit enter, what do you see inside there? We can see the movable.txt inside the folder. So what this simply means that our script has run very successfully. Awesome. Let me leave room for questions. If you have any question, you can ask me before we go to the part 2.
Sir,
Mm-hmm.
please, my movable it didn't enter the session 2.
Okay, what is your error message?
They didn't give any error message. When I pressed the ls session 2, the next listen was blank. Unlike your own that has the movable.txt.
Okay, I want to quickly confirm something also. But did you see the echo and all those other stuff?
Yes, please.
Then I have to, then you have to recheck your script. Maybe your script is different from mine. Yeah. So kindly check on your script, okay?
Okay.
Here the error may be coming from the script itself. That's the only explanation I can give to that. Besides
Okay,
that,
I have something like cannot start movable.ts search file or dictionary does not exist.
yeah, so check the file name. Maybe you made a typo when you were writing, because Linux is very strict. So you just check the file name inside the script. The name that's what I mean. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Yes, I made a mistake. A typing
Also,
mistake.
yeah, that's obvious. Okay. yeah, all those who are getting errors, please check whether they are typos. I'm sure there's typos that are giving you those kind of errors. Okay. Great. Now, let's move on to part 2. As I said, what we are doing in these free sessions, okay, is give you what we call highlights. We are not really digging deep too much into shell scripting, but this is an example of how a shell script can work. This is just so simple and doing a very trivial task, right? But we can have scripts that are thousands of lines long, hundreds of lines long, doing powerful and amazing stuff, right? But today we are just doing something very simple to just get the whole idea about what scripting is all about. So that nobody gets scared, right? Because Linux is fun, trust me. Okay. So we've written our first script and it ran successfully. You can write more scripts on your own, okay? At the end of today's session, I will show you how to script or how to get scripts with AI. When I say AI, I know that my audience, right? Right now, when you say AI, everybody says ChatGPT. Yeah, I mean ChatGPT. But AI can be more than ChatGPT. So, but you, the person, or you, the system administrator or the cloud engineer, before you get these scripts, at least you must know how to work with these scripts. Fine, when the AI spits the script to you, what do you next? What do you do next? So that's why we are doing this. So later on, we can use AI to generate advanced scripts. And currently, all the engineers I even work with, right? Even in the big companies, I don't want to mention names now, most of them don't script themselves, like trying to write a script to do database backup or something. They will not do it. They will just get the AI to give them the whole script. Then as an engineer, you now go to the script to make sure that there are no loopholes, maybe an attacker or a hacker that can take advantage of. Because when you just go to ChatGPT and you ask it to give you the script, it will give you the script. But there may be some vulnerabilities within the script that if you, the engineer, you don't take time to go through, okay, line after line, you may put your whole company at risk, right? So AI is good, but there's a place for it and there's a place you have to be careful when using it. Okay, so scripting can be used to automate file management, right? Moving files, separating files, blah, blah, blah. Then also writing logs, okay? Checking system status and scheduling cron jobs, right? So you can schedule the script like this script we just wrote. We can have a cron job that does this almost every day for us at a particular time in a day. And when we get into the program, we'll talk about more about automation. So the cloud engineering course, getting to the middle, from the middle almost to the end, it will be more of automation. And that's why the companies are paying the big bucks for, right? Companies are paying people the big dollars, not for anything, but because you get inside the company as an engineer, cloud engineer, and you're able to automate their whole setup for them. Because we want to reduce the human touch, right? Because human touches are prone to errors. So you get a company, you automate a whole lot of things for them. You make their outputs consistent. You save them from downtime. You save them lots of money. Then they are ready to pay you that amount. Why would they employ a cloud engineer and pay you $100,000 a year or $150,000? Because you are doing something amazing for them. It's not because you can write script, because you can automate their processes for them. Okay, so let's move away from that and talk about one more thing, which I think is important as a beginner to know. Because when you step into any new company, whether as a DevOps, web developer, data scientist, AI engineer, you are given a Linux server. You're like, okay, fine. I know how to work with the Linux server. I can create a file, I can create a folder. I know how to move around. I know how to create a script in Linux. I think I'm good to go. Then the next thing they tell you, okay, can you generate a key pair for us and give us your public key? Then we'll give you access to the server. So they're in a live call with you and they ask you, can you do this for us? They're waiting for you, and then you start scratching your hair. You're like, what are these guys talking about? So that's what we want to look at quickly. So before you have access to any server, which we may call a remote server. The server is not in your house. It is in the company. It's with the company, right? And maybe it's even on the cloud. So the company has created a server on the cloud, like AWS, Azure, and what have you. And the whole company, all the engineers in the company, they are working on that server. And you are a new person who has just received your letter, right? Your appointment letter. And they want you to generate a key pair and so that they can now give you access to the server. That's just the part I want to look at. Okay. It is very, very simple. You can generate the key pair, okay, for them using your Linux machine or a Linux terminal. You can even do so even from Git bash. And when you generate the key pair, you use the command called SSH keygen, right? And then you get them the key pair. So you have what we call a private key and a public key. So these are the two things I'm talking about: a private key and a public key. So you do a cat. Cat shows you the content of the file, right? So when you do a SSH keygen, it generates two keys for you. One key is called private because you keep that key to yourself. You don't share that key with anyone, not even the one asking you for a key. So when the person is asking you for a key, then that key that they want from you is what we call the public key. So with the public key, you can share it with anyone. It doesn't make any difference. Anyone can have your public key. But the private key is something that you keep and you don't share it with anyone. Awesome. Now, these keys enable us to securely connect to servers. Securely connect to servers, right? And what usually happens is that when you give out your public key is installed on the company server. Let me use that word install for now. So they will install that key on their server. Then from your terminal, you can now connect to that server and have access to the server using your private key. You cannot just connect to the server except use the private key. So the private key enables you to do what we call authenticate. It authenticates that it is really you. You are the one trying to connect to the server. And because they've installed your public key on the server, your connection will be validated. It will be authenticated. And then you can start working on the server. So it is that simple, right? And I'm going to just do a quick demo with AWS, okay? I'll create a server on AWS and I'll do an SSH into the server. Good? Are we good? There are some other things I want us to do, but it looks like time will not permit me. So I wanted to SSH into the server, then we create a simple web page and then deploy the web page on that server. So at least we will see a little HTML, CSS, JavaScript today. That's for those who have never heard of these three before. Okay, let's roll. Let's roll. If you are ready, tell me ready. Ready in the chat. Let me share my screen quickly. Okay, good. Okay, hold on once I open my AWS account, okay? Because of some security reason, I can't open the account and share it, I mean, on a live call. Let me authenticate into it first before I open it. It's for just security reasons. I don't know, maybe you have some serious hacker in the call. So let me just be careful. Give me a second, I'll be done. Okay, almost in, guys. Hold on. The layers of security I've enforced are quite many, so I'm breaking to them one after the other. Hold on. I set up one server before I started the cloud, but it's gone off, so I'm just spinning up a quick one. Okay, I'm in. So I'm sharing my screen now. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so on AWS, okay, the servers they have, okay, or enable you to create this in the cloud. So I have an AWS account. It's like opening a Facebook account. So I've also opened an AWS account, right? Then there are many services you can use, but they have AI services, they have networking services, they have data storage and storage services and what have you, right? But I am going to open a compute service. A compute service enables you to create computers. Let me just use that for today. Create computers on the internet. Isn't that amazing? That's what the cloud is about. So AWS Cloud enables you to what? Create computers on the internet. So you can actually create a computer, and the computer is what we call server, right? So I'm going to create a computer on the internet. Then I'm going to connect from my computer into that computer. And that's what I call the SSH, right? And then we'll see whether we can play in that server. Okay, we can do some one or two stuff in the server. Now we can create a Linux server. We can also create a Windows server. Since we are all tired of using Windows, right? I'll create a Linux server. Then I'll SSH into the Linux server using my private key, right? And then we just maybe we can create a quick website and host it on the server. That's if time will permit us. If time won't permit us, then our next session on Monday, I will maybe make that session like a web development session whereby I just teach you a little HTML, CSS, JavaScript, just an intro to that. Then we deploy a website or web page onto the server that I'm creating today. So for today, we may not create the website today. Let's just create a server and SSH into the server and play in that server, or maybe write one script in that server, right? If you're ready, type ready. I can do that within just 10 minutes. So if you are ready for that action, just type ready. We are now on AWS Cloud. Awesome.
He's
Awesome.
ready.
Good. Then let's do that quickly because of time. I really like respecting time. So I'm just buying just eight more minutes of your time and then we'll be done. So if you want to use any service, if you know the name of the service, come into this search box here. And I know I want to use EC2, right? Elastic Cloud Compute. That's where we go and create computers on AWS. Okay. So I click on EC2. Now, let me tell you this thing I realized. I know some guys who just go create these servers or computers. I have a friend who creates computers like these. He makes them very powerful because you can choose the RAM you want, the hard disks and stuff like that. So when you want to download or run a very powerful game, you just create this computer on AWS, install the game there, connect it to his computer, and you will see him playing the game on his computer, but he's actually playing it on the computer in the cloud. But he's connected this in such a way that you will not even know that it is not really his laptop he's using. So that's the funny idea, right? And hackers can also sometimes create these computers. They can create about thousands of these computers, and they'll use these computers to send traffic or requests to your website, and then they'll slow down your website. So the cloud is a very funny space, right? Okay, so when I click on EC2, what happens? it opens this service dashboard. This is the dashboard. The dashboard means that you can choose to do so many things from here, right? But I just want to launch or create a computer. So I just click on launch instance. Okay. And then they want me to name my computer. I'll name it Linda. Linda is one of my friends. I'll name the computer Linda. Maybe Linda PC, right? Linda PC. Then they want me to choose an OS, operating system. Let's just go with, should we go with Ubuntu? It's also a flavor of Linux, right? You can go with Ubuntu. You can go with the Amazon's own version of Linux. That's Amazon Linux. Then when you are done, I think right now we are going with Ubuntu, right? Okay. Then the rest of the things, let's keep it as default. Guys, I'm thinking of suing Vodafone. They are messing me up this evening. Okay, let me just finish up. So when AWS creates these two keys, right? Forget about the public key. The public key, they will install it for you on the computer. So they'll just give you the private one. The one I mentioned you can use to do the connection. They'll give it to you. So let's create a key pair. So I'll click on create new key pair. The things here, don't touch any of them. I'll leave this one as RSA, Revert Shama, Adelman. Those who are going to do the cyber course, you hear about these three guys. They made a key, right? And I'm going for a key called RSA, Revert Shama, and Adelman. Then I'll call this key pair maybe, what do I call it? I call it secret key, right? You can give it any name, it doesn't matter. Then I'll leave it as a .pm. It's okay. .pm, we can use it with our git bash, it will work. PPK is usually for something we call PuTTY. It's also a client interface that you use on Windows, but since we are going to use git bash while we downloaded, let's just leave it as PM. So over here, that's all. You don't do any other thing. You don't even write any command. The only thing you do here is that just give it a name and just click on create key pair. You are done. Now observe something here. Do you see that it has downloaded something for me here called secret key.pem? So this is my private key. And where has it been downloaded to? It has been downloaded into my downloads folder. That is all. I'm done. Then I scroll down. Basically, I'll not touch anything. Maybe I'll allow HTTPS, HTTP, and that's all. I click on launch instance. Launch means create the computer for me. And voila, AWS is creating a computer for me. And this computer is a Linux-based computer. Okay, so easy to, I'll go to my instances. Now, this part, don't memorize it, okay? Just watch what I'm doing. When I finish, I'll give you the notes, okay? With step by step or how to do what I've just done. So you just follow me. So you can see that when I went to my instances is just another name for computers, right? So among my instances, which I've only created one called Linda PC, right? It is running. And it is initializing here, meaning that it is starting up. Okay, good. Now I'll click on this blue ID here to open the instance interface. I'll click on it. So this part, usually, if you join a new company, the DevOps engineer or the cloud engineer is the one who would have done this one long time ago. All that he has to do is to just let you create the key pair and give him the public for him to install the public. Then you can use your private to do the SSH. But I'm just doing it for you to see how it is done. But don't worry yourself about what I'm doing now. So currently I want to connect, so I just click on connect. Okay. And I'll be using the SSH, right? SSH. So that is over here. Good. Now when I want to SSH into this computer, the command to do the SSH, it is already given to me here. You can see it from here. This is the command here. It is SSHI, but the SSH command is making use of the key I downloaded. As I mentioned, it's going to make use of that key, right? And whatever follows next here, this is the name of the computer. This is the name of the computer that I've created, right? I mean the internet name, let me put it that way. Good. So what do I have to do? I just have to copy this command here and go back to my git bash. So I'm going to pull up the git bash again. Let's open it up. So I'm going to use my git bash to connect to this computer on the cloud. And that's what basically they may expect you to know how to do. Okay. So let me clear the screen. Now, before I run this SSH command, let me just paste it and let's try whether it works. So I paste it raw like this. It's as easy as ABC. Just paste it and hit enter. Now, it's saying a whole lot of things here, right? It's trying to say that identity file secret or PEM not accessible. No such file or directory. It means that where I'm trying to run the SSH from, okay, this particular folder in which I'm running the SSH command, the key is not present in this folder. So when I even hit type yes, it cannot do the SSH. It failed to do it. It says permission denied. It was denied by what? The public key on AWS. Means that the public key did not see me using the private key. So I cannot access that server. What do I have to do? It is simple. I just have to move into the folder where the private key was downloaded. And the folder is my downloads folder. So I'll get out of this place, cd ... So I'll cd into my downloads folder, right? Right now I'm inside my downloads. Let me clear the screen. So I'm inside my downloads now. You can see it from here. PWD, present working directory. I mean my downloads, right? C users Dell downloads. Now let me paste the same command again. Let me paste the same command again. So I'll copy the command from here, the SSH command, and I paste it here. Good. And I now hit enter. Let's see what happens. Okay. Guys, what do you think just happened? I've now logged into the server on AWS. So look here. The name is no longer Shadrach, but it's now Ubuntu at IP, this IP. Let me clear my screen. I'll do ls. Nothing counts because I'm in this fresh, this newly created server. So currently I'm on that server online. So this is all that SSH is about. When you have the private key, you just call the SSH command and you are able to enter the server. Now from here, you can run any of the Linux commands we used to run, right? mkdir first, maybe a folder called first. You do ls and the folder is there. So all the commands we learned so far, you can run them on this Linux machine. And this is how the server will look like. There's nothing else to see apart from a black screen, as I mentioned. So if you are working on this server and you don't know how to run Linux commands, how will you be able to work on this server? It's not possible. So over here, we can write our scripts. We can try and play around, right, with the scripts and what have you. Okay, awesome. So today we've created our server. I will not destroy this server. I will leave this server as it is. Then in our next meeting, which will be our final meeting for the Linux introduction, we are not going to combine all that we've learned so far. Okay, we'll just write a very simple website. Okay, we'll create a very simple website, and then we will host the website on this EC2. We'll use what we call Nginx to serve it, and then anyone anywhere in the world can access our website. And in less than 40 minutes, we'll do that in our next session. That is on Monday. So make sure you don't miss the session on Monday. Don't miss the session on Monday. So that's all for today's session. If you enjoyed the session, just type sweet for me in the chat. Just type sweet. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we are taking it little by little. We don't want to do so much in a day, just little by little. And don't worry about the notes. When the lesson ends, I'll send you everything. I'll package it nicely and send everything to you on the various platforms. And those who are still looking forward to enroll, right? Those who are looking forward to enroll, I will still drop the contact in the chat for you, okay? So that you can call the number and then the administrator will help you with the enrollment process. So currently, we mentioned that we are allowing you to book a seat with just 100 cedis. You book your seat with 100 cedis, and then you are in the program. You are registered for the SIT October program. Whether it's cloud engineering, web development, cyber security, data science, you are good to go. So let me drop the number now quickly, and then you can chat the administrator up on WhatsApp. And remember, from the 6th October, all slots will be closed, right? It doesn't matter the class size, but no one will be allowed to register after the 6th. And this is the only class we are running for this year. Our next class may be next year, somewhere next year. So this is like the best opportunity. And this year, we are not taking tuition fee, okay? But next year, there will be tuition fee. So why not take advantage of this opportunity? Ebenezer, which link are you talking about? Let me stop the recording and attend to other matters.